We just had something go right over the top of us that looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast. We just had something go right over the top of us that looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast.
Well, hello, welcome to this next podcast that we've done. Today I think we're going to discuss the general broad aspects of disclosure and the lack of it. We've recently had the Pentagon Senate hearings where you would be fooled to think that there's more openness. In a sense there is, but this has all happened before. So we really want to discuss today what are the actual benefits and or fallbacks to disclosure. Why haven't we had disclosure? And just dive a little bit deeply into a few aspects of that.
And do you think we're at a situation now where we're literally sort of repeating the sort of 50s thing again?
Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Yeah, we've had an element of people in hearings in front of representatives of government stating balloons and all sorts of ball lightning and whatever excuse they could give to it, they would. They're basically trying to cover it up in the open, saying that it's there, but it's not there. It's not what you think it is. It's something else. With no scientific backing or proof for that, it's just something to fob off. Now, obviously, in today's society, you can't approach it that way. You have to have some sort of fact. You have to have some sort of backing. So we have half in, half out disclosure where you say, yeah, there's something there, we don't know what it is, but 99% of it is explainable. The other ones, we don't know what it is, but it's not aliens.
I think that you're exactly right. My feeling is that this time last year, it felt like something was going to happen.
Yes.
And then nothing happened at all. Absolutely. In fact, I would say they haven't actually disclosed any more than they did in 1955.
Yes, I'd say they've even gone a step further into the level of complexity they use to dismiss these sightings.
Yes, because all the sightings they're going on about in the news are obviously not aliens.
Mm.
Because obviously the ones they're talking about, the donut one over the ocean, is obviously just a plane. If you've looked at the evidence for the front-facing infrared camera,
the gimbal
lock and all the rest of it, people have been talking about these. So what are they doing, do you think?
Well, we can either go down that old road of secret projects that are being tested in live situations with real military aircraft or whatever.
Right.
Or,
so they could be rolling out more experimental stuff now than they have done in the past, and they just want to cover their arse, basically.
Well, they're going a step beyond what you had with the SR-71 or the Blackbird, the Blackbird or the F-117 Nighthawk, those stealth aircraft, which no one really knew about. They had guesses that they were secret projects, and they used to think that these triangular craft or whatever used to be Tic Tacs. But we've moved on many years since then. So a modern day experimental aircraft today wouldn't probably look like an aircraft. It probably looked like a Tic Tac or a triangle without any exhaust fumes. And it poses the question as what sort of level of technology they're at now and what sort of propulsion they're using, because jet aircraft, suck and spit out fire is old school. There's been patents, there are official patents there for anti-gravitic machinery. So it's foolish to think that that's not being experimented on. And when you have an endless budget, like the military industrial complex does, I'm sure that is the case, that they are testing these sort of craft.
But why are they using aerial phenomena that is so obviously disprovable? Surely they're going to disprove it at a later point. Or do you think they're just doing it to make sure everyone is utterly clueless?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think the lack of input from the science community is a big factor here. We didn't have enough people in the 50s to sit down and say, no, let me look at this scientifically, let me do the experiment and test and use the scientific method to prove or disprove what you're saying. I think that is changing slowly in a positive way, but we're not going to see the results of that for many years. I mean, scientific experiments such as these take many years to prove out.
But who's doing them?
That's the other problem.
Surely no
who's
scientist
in
would
their
go
pocket.
anywhere- Surely no scientists would go anywhere near. No television scientists would go anywhere near the UFO subject, would they?
Well, that's the prime example of Neil deGrasse Tyson stepping far away from this subject as he can, and you have other scientists that are stepping up to the plate, like Gary Nolan and what's his name, Friedman. There's physicist Friedman. I can't remember, not Lex Friedman, but another Friedman. There are many Friedmans. I can't remember the guy's name, but it is Friedman of some disclosure. But yes, you do have scientists that are putting their heads above the trenches and saying, "Fine, we accept the challenge and we will look into this with using our expertise."
Who's
Obviously,
going to fund that?
that's the problem. So now, obviously, in today's age, you don't have to depend on a university grant to fund your projects. You can crowdsource these things. You can get private enterprise to source it.
That's true.
And that is
Do a
what I think.
Kickstarter or something.
I think that is what these scientists are using. And obviously, a perfect example of that is the Mr. Oumuamua. What's his name again?
Which one?
The guy the guy that believes the theory that Oumuamua, the comet or asteroid, whatever it is, was actually an ancient artifact.
Well, I think quite a few people who believe that. I heard that Bigelow was interested in Oumuamua.
Well, Bigelow's interested in what happens after death. He's interested in all of it, isn't he? So, I'm not surprised with Bigelow.
But surely if Bigelow's interested, there's money to be sourced.
Yes. I remember the guy's name, Avilo, Dr. Avilo.
Right.
That's another Harvard level professor. These guys aren't just, randoms picked out because they've got good grades. These are professors in the highest institutions. They're not just anyone.
Sure,
So-
but I mean, if you think back to the whole Mars thing, when, there was quite a lot of evidence that something really unusual was on Mars, lots of NASA professors came forward and said, look, we want to do a new probe. And the BBC described them as space enthusiasts. So it all depends, doesn't it? I mean,
Well,
so the person who hasn't stuck their nose very far into this, the papers can say anything they want.
Well, yeah, they can. I mean, in regards to what happened with the Viking photos and NASA trying to cover it up, you had to have public discourse in the sense of people like Richard Hoagland who would kick up a stink and get a following, go on coast to coast every other week and build up an argument to say that we want to go back and take better photos. And that's the only way you can push these things forward. Now, NASA is a half in, half out, half for the people, half for themselves and the secret societies that they work for. So you'll never get a straight answer, hence why the acronym. So, yes, we will to some degree get answers, but it will be drip fed to us, and it will be only through the public's outcry of more answers.
Okay, well, I mean, in my sort of way of looking at this kind of thing, in my sort of, in terms of consistencies between the sort of government agencies, the one thing I see over and over again is that 90% of the people in these organisations are there to cover up the 10%. Do you know what I mean by that? Like
Yes.
in something like NASA, you've got rooms full of people wasting everyone's time on a daily basis, doing calculations, staring at the stars. Well, not as a waste of time, but what I mean is, compared to what the 10% of NASA are really doing, have really got,
Well,
these guys are just there to make you think that NASA are
They're the
a bunch
face.
of fireworks operators,
Yeah,
basically.
basically what happens with NASA is you have your very, very academic culture, and you have your very intelligent staff, number of staff members that will work for NASA. And obviously the very, very best will be cherry-picked and taken to a room and said, look, you're going to be put onto something here that if you are really interested in your subject will blow your mind, but at the same time, if you talk about it, you're out of the circle.
And we'll
And
claim you're a nutter.
And we'll claim you a nutter, we'll set you out, we'll threaten your family, whatever, Kill your dog, put its head on your bed, whatever. They will do things to prevent them from talking. Now, those individuals, you'll never get to. Not until their deathbed confessions or whatever, you would never get to them.
Also, I think that the impression the public have and what's real are so fundamentally different even the truth sounds ridiculous. So you can put these. Oh, we're experimenting with biological technology where we grow spaceships and stuff like that. If you said that in public, everyone would just think you were mad.
I think, but you got to remember that society is being blindfolded on multiple fronts. You have the scientific community won't look at it, will laugh at it. You have the media companies who are vested in covering it up because the entities that own them are part of the problem. And you have religion, you have false histories, you have many different aspects tying into public's perception of realities of what's going on. As long as that's the
narrative,
the narrative, it's never going to change. So you have to have some sort of revolt, and a revolt has to, obviously, ideally it would start from the top down, but it never does. Revolts start from the bottom down. The peasants wanting to know more, the peasants wanting to have fair game on their reality, on what's going on, whatever. So we have to. I think we have to be realistic in thinking that we will never get any sort of truth until it is forced and prized out of the hands of the people in power through force.
But I think that perhaps the truth is so far away from what people could handle now. It's gone past the point of no return a bit, hasn't it? I mean, if you told people the truth in 1947 about Roswell, because they'd started to, and then it all got covered up. And this is why I believe that if you look at the military, most of it is real and trying to help the people and trying to prevent, national security being compromised, etc., etc. Then you've got the people who showed up the next day and said, "What are you doing? You can't tell the public stuff like this. Tell them it was a weather balloon."
Yeah.
And everyone in the army just went, "Don't be ridiculous. We've already sent the message out. You can't tell them it's weather. Just tell them it's a weather balloon. It'll work, believe me. I've done it 100 times." There's two types of these organisations. There's two faces. The CIA, or whoever that bloke was that showed up at Roswell that day, is under a completely different set of orders to the people on that base.
Yeah.
So there's a sort of double facetedness to all of this.
There's a double facetedness. I can understand completely that you will have an element of secrecy when it comes to sort of technology that could threaten your country or the people you represent. But at the same time, there's always the human element. There are always people that have morals, and there are always people that think this is right, this is wrong. And sometimes we are lucky enough to have individuals in power that think, well, this is wrong. People need to know that. Hence the whistleblowers. Hence, that's the only reason we're here talking about this. Because if it wasn't for whistleblowers, we wouldn't know a damn thing ever.
Well, okay, but we still would have known about Roswell, because at the end of the day, that went to the newspapers before whoever it was showed up and silenced everything, right? But the reason I'm bringing this up is, what do you think the source of this current stuff is? Do you think this is a plot by the cover-up guys, or do you think this is the honest people just trying to get as much information out, or is it the sort of, is Luis Elizondo and the rest of them, are they basically pulling a fast one against the people who really want to know about UFOs? I mean, it almost feels like a double deception that the donut and everything else, which is obviously not a UFO, is being put into, so almost as if Luis Elizondo can say, it can be made a fool of, can be made a fool guy kind of thing. He'll be made like the next, David Paulides or something.
I think if you ultimately wanted to cover something this big up in today's society compared to the 1950s, you have to work a little bit harder than saying it's a fucking balloon. Sorry, French, but saying it's a balloon. Because you have the internet, you have groups of people, you have believers, you have non-believers, you have so many different parties involved that want to actually either get to the truth or hide the truth. At the same time, if you have people like Luis Elizondo coming out, who comes from a background of espionage and CIA meddlings, then you're never going to start off on a position of trust, and nor should you, because he could be the plant that's just trying to confuse matters, because people understand psychology a lot better these days than they did in the 50s. They're not going to just say, no, it's not true. They're going to say, oh, it could be true. It could be a flying banana. It could be this, and give you many other options to divert your attention away from the fact of what it is.
Or they could put Luis Elizondo out as a guy. I mean, they've already given him a really dumb-looking beard. I mean, you can see that he's kind of been given this identity, can't you? He's like a sort of grungy kind of bloke with sort of colourful clothing and shit. They could literally put him out, get all the UFO guys sort of around him when he's going, oh yeah, it was this, it was that, and then out him as a fraud and say, no, that was just a bloody infrared camera. The whole thing was a load of crap.
The problem is this is a bottle of pop that the cork is raring to get out, because, like I said before, you have people like Luis Elizondo, but you don't just have that element of insiders saying that this happened, take my picture. You have abductees. You have people that have seen things. You have professionals that have seen things that you know will not lie about it because it will destroy their career. You have some scientists started to come on board and say, well, yeah, it doesn't make sense. This is wrong. There are many different elements that point towards this being true than not. I think what we need to really understand is why would the government not want to disclose? I think that's what are the reasons why they wouldn't want to disclose this?
Okay, so we have got a few points here that perhaps we should go through. Now, of course, one way of, if you were to look at certain historical events as attacks on humanity, right, which you could do. You could look at something like the First and Second World Wars, Vietnam, maybe even 9/11, or maybe COVID, if you're that way inclined. Alien invasion is the most fantastic excuse you could have to blame somebody off-world for a mass destruction of human life. And then, it would give you so much power, wouldn't it? Because you could basically have no nations afterwards. Just like Reagan said, I can't help but think if we were facing a threat from outer space, we'd all unite. Well, yeah, that might not necessarily be a good thing. You're talking about the destruction of all native culture.
Yeah.
Which is, you've got to start asking what the point of life is.
I think
once all of that's gone.
I think we're touching on the blue beam hypothesis here, where they will fake an alien invasion to wipe out a large swathe of humanity, to then rebuild in the image of the whoever is in
there
control.
Was that story about the guy from the future. I can't remember. There have been quite a few different ones. There was the guy who got arrested for making too much money on Wall Street in one day. He made 870 million or something in one day, so the FBI arrested him because you're not allowed to do that kind of thing, apparently. And then some old guy showed up and bailed him out for $1 million. And there's a theory that was him. He bailed himself out. It's a bit of a wild story. But
Really, I've not heard that one.
but there's this other one about this guy from the future. I think they could only communicate with him through voice or computer or something. And he was saying that he lives in a future where after a nuclear war, and everyone's works together a lot more. The whole idea of nations is a thing of the past, which kind of fits in. I mean, but as I said, that could have just been a hoax, or it could have been preparation to get people ready for something. Who knows?
I mean, I think what you're touching on there is something we'll go into a little bit more depth of that later on in the discussion in regards to time travel and that sort of thing. But I think back to the point of alien invasion, that is one way to unite people, isn't it? It is one way to say, everyone, we're really in the crap now. We've got a whole fleet of bug-eyed guys coming in these strange tic-tac shaped craft, and the world's about to end. Let's all rally together, put our resources together, stop fighting each other. I mean, that's a benefit, if anything, but it's quite it's quite a morbid thought, because if there was an alien invasion coming, it's very likely that we wouldn't really see more than 2 seconds of it before we're wiped out.
Well,
because
that's possible. I mean, it's also possible that they've had a huge falling out with somebody they've been friends with for a long time, for instance, and somebody stepped on someone's toes, and they've been fighting in space for decades, and the battle's starting to get closer and closer to Earth, and they're like going, well, listen, we're going to have to tell them sooner or later. You know?
We're on the back foot. This is it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
No, we
yeah.
can't hold them off much longer. They're going to start seeing
That's a really
stuff.
interesting point. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're going into the realms of the secret space programs and the billions that have just been siphoned off to build massive, gigantic space warships.
Well,
That
you know, it just-
I've
it
heard
just
these stories
seems
before.
to me that
Yeah.
what would you actually need in terms of money? A military complex doesn't need money like investigating in a drug where everyone's out for taking a ton of money home. These guys will take orders, not paychecks.
Mm.
It wouldn't cost that much money to develop this stuff. All that, you know, they're digging the oil out of the steel out of the ground. You know, all internally inside of. You could send a bloody army to do that.
Well, you're assuming these things are built on Earth.
Well,
For a start.
what I mean is, if you can get hold of the raw materials, you know, if you could send the army
And you
out
had the infrastructure. It's
to get aluminium, lithium, or whatever the hell they need for this kind of thing, carbon fibre, would it really cost that much? It's not like developing a new drug where the pharmaceuticals have got to take $9 billion each. These guys run on orders. They'll work any hours. They got no union. They got nothing. They
No.
are soldiers.
but they are human beings and they have mouths and they have morals.
But the whole thing is compartmentalised. I mean, the guy developing the door handle doesn't know what door it goes on anymore.
Yeah,
You know, I mean,
I mean, the jury's out for me on a space fleet. I don't think that. I think there's too many cogs in that machine to not leak something. You know, there's too many cogs in that machine. If you have a fleet of craft that are manned by soldiers, now we are assuming the individuals in the craft are from Earth and not humans that were based elsewhere and you've never seen Earth. That's one aspect. That's the only way. That's the only way you do
The
it.
whole base on the far side of the moon.
Yeah,
and they've
exactly.
got people raising families as soldiers there.
Exactly.
I mean, that would be so wild.
But that kind of ties into one of the other points, you know, is the malevolent force holding back the awareness. I mean, could it be a subspecies of humans that have all the control and they just want to completely wipe out everyone else so they are the dominant species?
The ones with a point, yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it could be that kind of thing.
It could be that kind of thing.
The what we used to talk about as gods
Yeah,
have
yeah.
now got in space.
The Anunnaki or... whoever they are.
Those kind of guys.
Yeah.
And that literally they just thought to themselves, wait a minute, why don't we just stop the moon spinning relative to Earth and go and live on the other side of it, and we'll just control everything.
Yeah, we'll just watch the show. But then watching the show goes on to another. Are we an experiment? You know, if this is something concocted by extraterrestrials, that we are an experiment of some sort, either some sort of genetic experiment or we are in some level of simulation,
Behavioural experiment.
a behavioural experiment, then that's another aspect to that. You wouldn't want, if you were the government in the know, you wouldn't want us to tell everyone, oh, by the way, we're all lab rats and we're in the lab. These are our masters up here and they're just watching us or breeding us for genetic material or organs.
I'd be surprised at that. I mean, you would have thought that they'd have kidnapped Emma Watson by now. So,
Yeah, yeah, probably.
You know.
You said she's not an alien already, but yeah.
But it's, who knows? Who knows? But as you say, okay, so that's one possibility. I mean, the idea of an imminent alien invasion, I suppose you'd have to prep us a bit quicker than this, wouldn't you? You wouldn't be sort of just doing.
Well, you got to remember the universe is so vast. The time scales involved in things are years and decades, and you know things happen in hundreds of thousands of years and millions of years rather than next week. By the way, they're landing. You know, the vastness of space will kind of dictate that a time scale, won't it?
I think if anyone's coming to visit Earth, they've got to be past the speed of light. I don't think you could.
Or they are probably bending space and time.
It's
and
a
going
difficult
through
question because one of the things about
Yeah.
travelling at the speed of light is time for you is stationary. That's what relativity is. Now, if time for you is stationary, okay, it takes 4 years in our time, in terms of solar years, to get from Alpha Centauri to here. But it wouldn't take the people in the spaceship 4 years, they'd be here instantly. So,
But our perception
but it
of
would
4
still take
years,
4 years for them to get here on Earth.
from our perspective, and we're talking about our perspective.
Exactly.
So if we're born in 4 years' time, they're going to be here.
Theoretically, if you were in a really bad mood, and you got in your spaceship and pushed the speed of light button, you would get here instantly. But it would be 4 years and our time. So maybe that's what's happened. Is they're in the spaceship, frozen in time, travelling at the speed of light, and all the guys on Earth are going, "Oh my God, he's going to be in just as bad a mood when he gets here. We've only got 2.5 years left."
Yeah.
You know, so
We've
maybe
got to tell everyone now.
we're going to have a break.
Everyone get their ID tablets out. Right.
That's what's going to happen. This is just a bloke stuck in a really bad mood for 4 years straight.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean the idea that the Earth is the lab. I mean, you have to say that in all the sorts of, because of course the whole idea of all this has changed so much just in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, we were still being told that Earth is a singularity.
Mm.
And
Yes.
there's nothing else like it in the universe.
Yes.
There's no one else out there. Now we're absolutely convinced there's hundreds of millions of whatever they're called, G4 planets,
Which
whatever,
I think is
just
pathetic.
in the Milky Way alone.
Which I think was always a pathetic theory. The fact that we're here means that we're not fucking individuals. We're not special.
We're not a singularity.
We're not a singularity. We are, you know,
In fact, I would
we
argue
are quite common.
I would argue. I mean, in my experience with science, every single thing that's been talked about as a singularity has always turned out to be far more common than they ever thought it was.
Exactly.
You know, a
The whole-
singularity is a
The
very
Higgs
odd.
boson, for instance.
Exactly.
you know,
The idea of a singularity is a very peculiar idea. That something is unique
yeah,
in an infinite universe.
it's just more hubris, isn't it? Again, to think that this is just the one and only instance of this occurrence or this particle, or the, you know, that's ridiculous.
But
The fact that it exists means that more exists.
Well, the thing about that problem, if you think about what that problem has synthesised, right? So went from a situation where we thought we were the only planet, S3, I think they call it, don't they? S3 planet in the Milky Way, to going to hundreds of millions, maybe billions. At no point did the astronomers start going, we need to start looking more seriously at UFOs.
Mm.
Nobody ever made that step.
No.
These people are supposed to be scientists.
But then again, that's culture for you. That's
Because
culture.
they've made it an embarrassment.
Yes,
First.
that's culture for you. No
Yes.
one will take you seriously.
Exactly.
No one will want to listen to you. So, I tell you what, just forget about it. It never happened. You don't have an opinion on it. Get on with what
And
you do.
I think this brings us on to something, you know, that I've been thinking about for the last couple of days. Is that I was watching on, you know, one of the researchers talking about how the world is ruled by force. It's not ruled by force at all. It's ruled by lies and perception.
It's a suggestion.
Exactly. These people, behaviour is, the routine is such a powerful weapon.
Mm.
You know, what would I do if I didn't have an office to come to? I mean, everybody's life has been kind of drained out of them by the time they're 20, 25. They've been systemised into a thing where, you know, if you didn't have a work office to go to, what would you do? Go and live in a ditch? I mean...
Well, exactly. I mean, I could use my father as an example of that. He's a pilot, a 40-year career pilot for a massive airline, and you know, that airline has made it very clear to all its flight crew that you are never to say anything about seeing objects or you will be grounded. And he was, you know, he's had friends that have seen things, and he's seen when he saw the objects when he was flying. You know, the pilot next to him at the time he saw it, he was a first officer, and the captain next to him said, "You best not say anything about that. I saw it as well, but let's just leave it at that." And that ingrained fear that's perpetrated by industry. Now this is an entity. This is a company telling you that you did not see what you just saw, and if you did see what you just saw, you're not working for us anymore. That level of fear goes across all different sorts of
Close Encounters of the
industry.
Third Kind, where they make that point, where they show the traffic control, air traffic control, and the guy's saying, "We just saw something really unbelievable. We saw these lights," and the guys in the air traffic control saying, "Yeah, we can see it on radar. What is it? Oh, it looks like a sort of giant orange ball. We don't even know what it is." And they go on to talk about it for a while, and it gets to the end and says, "You guys want to report it?" And he goes, "No, we don't want to report it."
No. That's the level of control you were just suggesting. It is not forcefully given to you. You have a choice to make. You are given the choice. Yeah, fine. Make your claim. We'll make you out to be crazy, and you won't have a job. in today's society, we will have to have a job
And it wouldn't
because
make
we
a
will
difference
not
anyway.
live if we didn't.
Yeah, it wouldn't make a difference anyway because the news are never going to show you as anything other than a nutter.
Exactly.
So
No
what's
one's there
the
to believe
point?
you.
Because until somebody says in the news, "Oh, this guy's a great pilot, he's one of our best. We've got to, we've really got to stand by him." Well, why would they
There's
do
no
that? It's
support
one
structure,
person.
yeah.
The whole news is infiltrated by all kinds of people.
And that's another interesting point that you made, that obviously we've seen these hearings where they're saying they're more open, they want to be more open to people in the military coming forward and recounting their experiences without any repercussion. Now, is that something that is a ploy to draw out the people that have seen some things to get rid of them? Or is that truly being genuine in what they're saying?
Well, I mean,
that's another.
That's an excellent question. I mean, if you think about the level of commitment you have to be in the military, it's more serious than working for your airline, your dad's airline, for instance.
Yeah.
Because you are basically
It's life or death.
giving. But not only that, it's other people's life and death. I mean, an order
Yeah, exactly.
is beyond your own responsibility. Who gave the order? It's not about who blew him up.
Yeah.
It's about who gave the order, because the order is murder
Yes.
if it's not given at the right time. So the officer is fallible. The soldier's just a machine in
Yes.
that situation.
He's a tool, yes.
So no matter what he's like, an air pilot might see, if he says anything that is out of, I mean, the Foo Fighters thing. I mean, you think about how many World War II fighter people there were, bomber people there were. Still, the Foo Fighters is quite an underground subject.
It's strange, isn't it? Because both sides saw them, and both sides thought it was the other
enemy.
side.
Exactly.
You know, it's
I mean,
like-
I still find that quite confusing, that you would see a small flashing ball sitting in a turbine prop plane,
Yeah.
and you think, my God, they've gone quite a long way ahead of us. How are they?
These guys are flying around lanterns. Jesus,
Yeah.
we were just out here.
What,
Yeah.
what would you think it actually was?
Yeah, you're right in that sense. But back onto the topic of disclosure, and should we move on to our next point with that? So another reason, obviously we're talking about reasons as why they're not disclosing. We're giving you a couple so far. I think the next one would be something that would horrify a lot of people that are not in the know of UFOs, which would be human abductions, experimentations, and mutilations, of possible mutilations of human beings. If you then knew about aliens and they weren't something that were on your radar at all,
this is what we're talking
and all of a
about.
sudden you're told that these creatures from another world are coming down and sticking things in your bottom, and then they are, and then they're flying off and they're tormenting you, or impregnating your wife.
Cutting the skin off.
And taking your unborn child and then multiplying it 100 times in a mutated version. I don't think the general populace would accept that. And we're allowing them to do that because we have signed a contract for a technology exchange,
Or
they could take some samples of human beings.
Yeah, or we couldn't have stopped them anyway. So what?
Yeah,
We might
yeah,
as well have
that's
taken technology.
Yeah, and if you said you couldn't stop them anyway, that would make you terrify people even more.
Absolutely.
We have no way of protecting ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of what. But there's two sides to this, though. Of course, first of all, they're not disclosing technology they've gained from these things.
No.
I mean, I still don't quite understand what the point of that really is. I mean, what is if they really have got these massive 200-meter wide flying space platforms? What are they for?
Exactly. Other than to protect the
What's the point of them?
planet, if they're not there to protect the planet, what are they there for?
What are they for? I mean, what are you telling me, that if there's a secret space fleet and they've got bases on the far side of the moon, and did have even in the 60s from Professor Wolf, or Dr. Wolf, or his name was, a disclosure, the original disclosure, Stephen Greer's one I'm talking about.
Right, yeah.
If that's really true, then you've just got to say that, why the bloody hell did they stand around and watch Concorde crash? If they could have flown that thing there in 1 second and got underneath it. What's the point of it?
Well, that complete detachment from obviously historical events and suffering and whatever
But they
suggests more that
obviously-
these are not malevolent, but they are benevolent, but they have some sort of a structure in place where they're not to interfere with human beings.
Okay, but if they could stop the people mutilating cattle, then surely they would.
Yes.
Or at least they'd say to them, no, you're only allowed to do it there, or you're only allowed to do it. We can't have you doing it all over the place.
How about we give you, we'll put a herd of cows at the end of one of our air bases, and you go there and pick them up and take them.
Or even...
Why couldn't they just organise
even
that?
if they're doing monitoring. I mean, that's what I find confusing about the whole... I'm sort of skipping back to last week a bit here.
Yeah.
But now that I've had a bit of time to think about it, that's what I find confusing about this whole idea of it being monitoring. I mean, what can a cow breathe in or eat that a drone can't?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would have thought you could just put something the size of a thimble flying around, which could do that job. You wouldn't have to cut up a cow and suck all its blood out. It's such a pain in the backside.
But we're assuming that, obviously, going back to last week, if it's some level of experimentation or some sort of way of understanding what we ingest or what our food, whatever's going on with humanity,
But whatever you
our
can find in
mainstay
that
of
cow, you can find in its environment, right?
For sure. Sure, obviously you wouldn't be able to replicate. I don't know if you'd be able to. Well, obviously these guys have got technology beyond the belief, so surely they'd be able to replicate what a bit of chewed up grass does when it goes through 5 cow stomachs. Just by looking at it, you could do that.
Even if it was the prion thing we were talking about, you know.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Even if that was true, okay, they're microscopic, but whatever the cow's eating, that thing could take a sample off.
Sure.
So, which almost makes me think that the incubation idea is maybe not so stupid. But I still don't understand why you take the eyes or the liver or
the genitalia. Well, the genitalia for reproduction reasons.
it just, it's almost as if food is a more likely solution. You know,
The delicacies. There's a possibility that they were delicacies. But I mean, I think we went into that in depth in our last discussion.
Yeah, if you went into that, but why can't you breed your own cows? It just, I can't.
Yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't you just take a sample of the cows, go and breed them wherever you're from, and then play with them there? I mean, why come back and just take a cow every time?
Every single way I look at it, I can't understand what it is.
It's so odd, isn't it?
I just can't get it. And I think that's why we drew a line under it.
That's where we drew a line under it.
But even a week later, of thinking about
it still baffles us.
I just can't understand.
Can't get your head around.
And I feel very much the same way with this. You know, it's almost as if a huge part of this is just to F with your head.
Yeah.
You know, Luis Elizondo coming out with this weird goatee, just talking absolute nonsense, showing a few pictures that are completely fake. It's almost like they just do it for fun. Yeah,
they're here to torment us and just to muddy the waters even more. To muddy it even more and get more kooks out.
The flipping researchers just to try and make even more of a fool of this.
But it is a way of drawing out elements within society to single them out and to point fingers at them and to make them foolish. So if you're gonna do a psyop, surely what you're going to do is you want to draw out the people that are going to be your biggest headache. You're going to draw out the scientists who want to. You're going to draw out the people that want to disclose. You're going to draw them all out, and you're going to identify them, and then you're going to wipe them away. And then you cleared the board, then, haven't you?
It's the same old thing like Greenpeace, isn't it? You know, you find some chick at university who's very passionate about this and that, and you say, look, you know, we will send you into Greenpeace. We want to report every week of what they're doing, what they're planning on doing. I want you to get deep, crazy campaigner deep, and just report back to me every week or every month. You know, I'll meet you here. You put a little USB stick through there. You know, this is your computer. It's completely encrypted. No one can get into it except you. And that's how they begin. And it does make you wonder with something like you know. Obviously, the conspiracy community has to be infiltrated.
They have to be, yes. Yeah. And they have to be misinformed.
Absolutely. And it's difficult to misinform them because they're suspicious by nature.
Yes.
So when you show up and start saying, you know, I'm... it's like that bit where he walks in Team America, where he walks in the bar and goes, hi, I'm Jake. I'm a terrorist. It's just like, you know, people are like, what? Well, you don't just wander in and say, "Hi, I'm a conspiracy theorist."
Yeah, yeah.
You know, people are going to start going, "You're what?" You know, so in some ways, the way to get information out of them is to
it's to connect on them on a level.
Well,
It's to convince them that you're one of them, and then I've got, not only am I one of you, but I've got something you've never seen before that you're really going to like. Now that I've got into your trust, I'm going to show you some things that you will really blow your mind and take the conversation somewhere else. I'm going to give you something you've never had before. You've got someone from the inside.
Exactly. Look at this. This is for a
And this is
military
what I'm telling
jet.
you. And I want
This is a donut UFO.
And I want the world to know about this because this is a threat to us. Now, you're achieving two things there. You're helping your enablers, the CIA, whoever, get more funding for a perceived threat. One. You're drawing out the people that will be your biggest naysayers, and you're identifying them to then.
Well, also,
Obviously,
you're
ruin
finding
their
out
lives.
you're finding out who you can fool and who you can't.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the things about Luis Elizondo, is he's quite obviously BS. But a lot of, because he's on the news, 90% of people with a sort of fringe interest in it are going to go, yeah, wow, well, let's find out what he's saying.
This guy's on our side.
That 10% that just go, oh, he's BS, that's a freaking plane with an FLI up, they know instantly these people are the problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And as you know, what's happening to a lot of researchers nowadays, they get targeted by flipping BBC or whatever and outed as a creep, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's a big part of it. So I think we are sort of starting to move towards the idea that this is a psyop of some kind, rather than a preparation of something really dark and gloomy.
Yeah.
It almost feels like this is a sort of firefighting exercise, that they're just sort of saying, whoa, there's a lot of people out there who are getting a bit too close to what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
We just had something go right over the top of us that looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast. We just had something go right over the top of us that looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast.